When my eldest son died, a phone call changed everything. "Ma'am, I've discovered something about your son you need to see. It's urgent. Come to my office immediately, but don't tell anyone in the family. It could be dangerous." The voice of his boss was trembling. When I arrived, I froze when I saw who was standing there. But before we continue, make sure you're already subscribed to the channel and type in the comments where you're watching this video from. We love knowing how far our stories travel. I never thought that at 65 years old, I'd be attending the funeral of my firstborn son. Liam was only 40, a man of integrity, dedicated to his job as a financial analyst, and above all, an exemplary son. They say no mother should ever have to bury her child, and now I understood the devastating pain behind those words. Liam's body had been found in his apartment 3 days earlier, the victim of an apparent heart attack. No one saw it coming. He had always been healthy, exercised regularly, and had just passed a full physical. The doctors talked about sudden cardiac death, an undetected genetic predisposition, cold terms that didn't explain why my son was now lying in a casket. During the wake, I watched my younger son, Ethan, organizing everything with an admirable efficiency. He and his wife, Sophie, handled every detail of the funeral, while I remained seated, numb with grief. "Mom, leave it to us. You just need to rest," Ethan would repeat with that protective tone he'd been using with me for the past few years. Something bothered me, but I attributed it to my fragile emotional state. Ethan seemed a little too composed. It's not that I expected him to be hysterical, but there was an almost unsettling serenity in his posture. Sophie remained by his side, always attentive, always vigilant, as if she were monitoring every movement around us. After the burial at the Oakwood Cemetery in Denver, everyone went back to my house. While the guests helped themselves to the coffee Sophie had arranged, I sat in a corner of the living room, staring at the portrait of Liam above the fireplace. It was then that I noticed the whispered conversations between Ethan and Sophie, exchanged glances. Something felt out of place. "Mom, we need to talk about the future," Ethan said, sitting down next to me after the last guests had left. "This house is too big for you alone. Sophie and I were talking, and we think it would be best if you sold it and moved into a smaller apartment, or maybe that retirement community near our house in Boulder." The suggestion caught me by surprise. "But son, we just buried your brother. I don't think this is the time to—" "That's precisely why, Mom," Sophie interrupted with her melodious voice. "Liam was taken so suddenly. Life is unpredictable. We need to think about your well-being." I nodded distractedly, unable to process the conversation. That's when the phone rang. Ethan quickly got up to answer. "Who was it?" I asked when he returned with a tense expression. "No one important?" he replied evasively. "Just someone from Liam's office wanting to talk to you about some documents." "What documents?" "Nothing to worry about now, Mom. I told them to call back some other time. You need to rest." That night, alone in my room, exhaustion finally overcame me. I was almost asleep when my cell phone vibrated. Unknown number. "Mrs. Eleanor Vance, this is David Chen, the chief financial officer at the company where your son worked." "Yes," I answered, trying to clear my head. "Ma'am, I need to speak with you urgently, in private. It's about your son." My heart sped up. "About Liam? What happened?" There was a pause before he answered. "I can't talk over the phone. Could you come to my office tomorrow morning? And please do not mention this conversation to anyone, especially not your other son or his wife." "Why not? Please trust me. It's for your own safety. Come at 9 a.m., he said, giving me the address of the company in downtown Denver. After hanging up, I lay awake for hours. Why so much secrecy? What could David Chen possibly know about Liam that required such discretion? And why specifically mention Ethan and Sophie? The next morning, I told Ethan I needed to go pick up some prescriptions. He insisted on going with me, but I was firm. "Son, I need some time alone. It's just a pharmacy." I drove downtown to the Denver Corporate Center, where Liam had worked for over 10 years. The imposing glass and steel building always impressed me. At the reception, I announced I had a meeting with David Chen. I was escorted to the top floor, an executive area where I had never been before. David greeted me personally, a middle-aged man with a grave look. "Mrs. Vance, thank you for coming. Please, come in." His office was spacious, with a panoramic view of the city. He closed the door and pressed a button that darkened the glass windows. "I need to ensure total privacy for this conversation," he explained. "Mr. Chen, I'm starting to get worried. What is so important and secret about my son?" He took a deep breath. "Mrs. Vance, what I'm about to tell you may seem unbelievable, but I ask you to hear me out to the end." I nodded, feeling a chill run down my spine. "Your son Liam came to me about 3 months ago with a very serious concern. He had discovered severe financial irregularities involving your other son, Ethan." "Irregularities? What kind?" "Embezzlement of funds from the company where Ethan works. Liam discovered it by chance while analyzing some documents that fell into his hands. But that was just the beginning." David took a thick folder from his drawer and opened it in front of me. "Liam discovered that Ethan wasn't just embezzling money, but he was planning something much more serious that involved you." I looked at the documents, seeing copies of emails, bank statements, and what appeared to be a sales contract for my house with my signature forged. "I don't understand," I murmured, feeling the room spin. "Mrs. Vance, Liam found out that Ethan and Sophie have massive debts, gambling, failed investments, a lifestyle far beyond what they can afford. They plan to sell your house and transfer all your assets to themselves as soon as possible." "But that doesn't make sense. They would need my authorization." "Exactly. And that's where Liam got truly worried. He found communications between Ethan and a doctor discussing how they could have you declared mentally incompetent to make decisions. I felt as if the air had been sucked from my lungs. That's absurd. Unfortunately, it's not. Liam collected all this evidence. When he confronted Ethan, the situation became dangerous." "Dangerous how?" David hesitated. "Mrs. Vance, Liam feared for his own life. That's when we decided he needed to disappear temporarily." "Disappear? What do you mean?" David glanced toward the door of his private office bathroom. It opened slowly, and then I saw the impossible. Liam walked into the office. My son, whom I had buried 3 days earlier, was alive, standing before my eyes. "Mom," he said softly, his eyes glistening. Everything went dark around me. The last thing I remember is hearing Liam shout my name as I fell. When I regained consciousness, I was lying on the office sofa. Liam was holding my hand. For a moment, I thought it was all just a cruel dream. The funeral, the pain, everything. "Mom, it's me," he said, squeezing my hand. "Forgive me for the suffering I've caused you. It was the only way to protect you." "How?" I murmured, touching his face, feeling his warm, real skin. "We buried you. I saw your body." "It wasn't me," Liam explained gently. "David helped me fake everything. The body was an unidentified man from the morgue, with physical characteristics similar to mine. We have contacts who helped us with the necessary documents." I looked at David, who nodded gravely. "I know it sounds like a bad spy movie, Mom, but when I discovered what Ethan was planning, I realized I needed time to gather all the evidence and protect you. If I just disappeared, he would suspect something. I needed everyone, including him, to believe I was dead." "But why? Ethan is your brother, my son. He would never—" "Mom," Liam interrupted gently, "I know it's hard to believe, but I have proof." He took the folder from David and began showing me documents. Emails exchanged between Ethan and a psychiatrist, discussing how they could document my supposed mental incompetence. Bank statements showing massive debts in Ethan and Sophie's names. A detailed plan to sell my house and put me in a nursing home. In the last 2 years, Ethan and Sophie have accumulated debts of over $300,000, Liam explained. Gambling, high-risk investments, a lifestyle they can't afford, and now they're desperate. And their solution was to eliminate me, I asked, feeling a pain that went beyond the physical. Not physically, Mom, but legally, yes. They plan to obtain legal guardianship over you, control all your assets, sell everything, and eventually place you in a cheap facility while they spent your money. I suddenly remembered the small things that had been happening in recent months. Ethan and Sophie commenting that I was becoming forgetful, documents I didn't remember signing, Sophie organizing my medications, insisting I needed stronger doses. Have they been drugging me? I asked, horrified at the possibility. I'm afraid so, David said. We analyzed some of your medications that Liam discreetly collected. We found traces of drugs that can cause mental confusion and drowsiness. That's why I've been feeling so tired lately, I murmured. I thought it was depression, my age. Part of it might be, Liam said gently, but they were helping the process along. I fell silent, trying to process it all. My own son, planning to steal everything I had built over a lifetime of work, and to do so, willing to declare me incompetent, to snuff me out while I was still breathing. What do we do now? I finally asked. We need to be careful, David said. Ethan can't know that Liam is alive or that you've discovered the plan. Not yet. So, we continue with the charade? I pretend nothing happened? For now, Liam said, we're gathering more evidence involving the right authorities. When we have everything in order, we'll confront Ethan and Sophie legally. I looked at my son, my living son, and felt a mixture of joy at having him back and a profound ache for the betrayal of the other. How am I going to look at Ethan knowing all this? I asked. It will be difficult, Mom, but you're stronger than you think. Liam hugged me, and for the first time since I received the news of his death, I truly cried. Not tears of mourning, but of relief, rage, and determination. When I returned home that afternoon, I found Ethan waiting for me, visibly irritated. Where were you, Mom? I was worried. You said you were going to the pharmacy, but when I called, they said they hadn't seen you today. I took a deep breath, remembering Liam's advice to act normally. Oh, I went to a different pharmacy. Then I ended up stopping at a cafe. I just needed a moment alone. Ethan studied me, as if assessing whether I was lying. Well, you shouldn't go out like that without telling me. You're not in an emotional state to be wandering around the city. I'm not an invalid, son, I replied, trying not to show the anger growing in my chest. I just needed some time for myself. Of course, Mom. We're just worried about you. Right, Sophie. I hadn't noticed Sophie standing in the kitchen doorway, observing our conversation with that placid smile that now seemed calculated to me. Of course, she said, approaching. In fact, I brought your evening medications. You seem so tired. She handed me a glass of water and 2 pills. I looked at the pills that, until yesterday, I would have taken without question. Thank you, dear, but I'll take them later. I don't have an appetite right now. I saw a quick exchange of glances between them. It's important to maintain the regularity of the medications, Eleanor, Sophie insisted, especially the sleeping ones. The doctor was very clear about it. Which doctor? I asked innocently, another glance between them. Dr. Perez, Ethan replied quickly. Remember we took you last week? You were so confused after the news about Liam. I had never met any Dr. Perez. It was all a lie. Oh yes, I feigned agreement, but I really prefer to take them later. That night, I locked my bedroom door, something I never used to do, and flushed the pills down the toilet. For the first time in months, I slept without medication. My mind seemed clearer the next morning, as if a fog had lifted. In the following days, I maintained a facade of normalcy. I let Ethan and Sophie think they were still in control, while I secretly communicated with Liam through a prepaid cell phone David had given me. A week after the revelation, Ethan sat down with me during breakfast with some papers in his hand. "Mom, I've been thinking about what we discussed about the house. It's really too big for you alone, and the upkeep is expensive." I replied vaguely, sipping my coffee. "I found a perfect apartment for you, small, cozy, with 24-hour security and a nursing station in the building." "A nursing station?" "Of course. And what about the house here in Denver?" I asked, feigning interest. "Well, I thought we could sell it. The real estate market is good. With the money, we'll buy the apartment for you, and we can invest the rest to ensure your comfort." "Meaning you would manage the money?" Ethan seemed surprised by my direct tone, but recovered quickly. "Of course, Mom. You don't have to worry about those things. We'll take care of everything." "And what if I don't want to sell?" His smile faltered for an instant. "Mom, I know you're going through a difficult time with Liam's loss, but you need to think about the future. You can't keep living in the past." "I'm not living in the past, Ethan. I'm questioning why you're in such a hurry to sell my house." He sighed, as if dealing with a stubborn child. "Well, there are some practical matters. Sophie and I have some unforeseen expenses, and since the house will eventually be ours, it makes sense to move the process along and use some of the money now, when we need it." There it was, the partial confession. I tried to control my rage. "So, basically, you want to sell my house to pay off your debts?" Ethan paled. "That's not what I said." "It's exactly what you said, son." He stood up, visibly disturbed. "I think you're not understanding. Maybe you're still too affected." "I'm understanding perfectly," I replied calmly. "I just don't agree." In the following days, I noticed a subtle shift in Ethan and Sophie's approach. They moved from direct insistence to a more insidious strategy. Concerned comments about my memory became more frequent. "Mom, did you take your medicine today? You seem confused," Ethan would ask, even when I was perfectly lucid. "Eleanor, do you remember that conversation we had yesterday about selling the house?" Sophie would question, referring to a conversation that never happened. They were little seeds of doubt, planted daily, designed to make me question my own sanity. If I didn't know what was happening, I could have easily started to doubt myself. At night, when I was alone, I exchanged messages with Liam, who updated me on the progress of their investigation. David had hired a private investigator and was gathering concrete evidence of Ethan's debts, the forgeries, and the plan to have me declared incompetent. "We need more time," Liam wrote. "We're almost ready, but we have to be careful. Ethan has dangerous connections." That intrigued me. What kind of connections could my son have? The boy I raised, who played with toy cars in the yard, who cried on my lap when he was dumped for the first time. How had he transformed into this calculating stranger? One afternoon, while Ethan and Sophie were out, I decided to do something risky. I went into the guest room where they had been staying since Liam's funeral. Rummaging through their things, I found a folder hidden at the bottom of the closet. Inside were credit card statements showing astronomical debts from casinos, luxury stores, and expensive trips. There were also documents related to loans from loan sharks. The dangerous connections Liam had mentioned. Ethan owed money to dangerous people and was desperate to pay them. I also found an envelope with photos. I was shocked to see images of myself, clearly taken without my knowledge, at moments when I looked confused or tired, likely after taking the medications they were giving me. There were notes on the back of each photo. Confused upon waking. Didn't remember where she put the keys. Asked the same question twice. They were building a case against me, meticulously documenting any slip-up. There was also a letter from a doctor, presumably the so-called Dr. Perez, discussing my case. The doctor suggested that with the proper documentation, he could issue a report attesting that I was suffering from early-onset dementia and lacked the capacity to manage my own affairs. I photographed everything with the phone Liam had given me and put the documents back exactly as they were. My heart was pounding, not just from the fear of being caught, but from the confirmation of the betrayal. Seeing the concrete evidence was very different from just hearing about it. I sent the photos to Liam, who responded immediately. This is exactly what we needed. We're going to accelerate the plan. We'll have everything ready in 2 days. That same night during dinner, Ethan brought up the house again. Mom, I found an interested buyer. He's willing to pay above market value, but we need to give a quick answer. What a coincidence, I commented casually. You find a buyer before I've even decided if I want to sell. Ethan exchanged a look with Sophie. Actually, he said slowly, we already talked about this, remember? You agreed it would be for the best. I don't remember that conversation, I replied, knowing full well it never happened. See, Sophie said with an exaggerated expression of concern. This is what we're talking about, Eleanor. These memory lapses are becoming more frequent. It's not a memory lapse, I stated firmly. It's impossible for me to forget agreeing to sell my own house. Mom, Ethan sighed. This is getting complicated. Maybe it's time to consider a more serious evaluation. Dr. Perez mentioned... Which Dr. Perez? I interrupted, feigning confusion. I've never consulted any Dr. Perez. Another exchange of glances. The geriatrician who saw you last month, Sophie said patiently, as if speaking to a child. I really don't remember. Do you? No, I don't remember, I replied, because it never happened. Ethan put down his cutlery and faced me. Mom, this is exactly what worries us. You've been having these... episodes. You deny things that happened. You forget important conversations. Or maybe, I suggested, you're saying we had conversations that never took place. The ensuing silence was tense. I realized I had gone too far. I wasn't supposed to confront them yet. I'm sorry, I backtracked. I'm tired. I think I'll go to bed early today. Of course, Mom, Ethan said, relief visible on his face. Sophie will bring you your medicine. No need, I replied quickly. I've already taken them. You took them? Sophie asked, frowning. When? Before dinner. Another exchange of glances. Mom, you shouldn't take medicine unsupervised. You might get confused with the doses. I've been taking these pills for years, Ethan. I know how they work. I retreated to my room, locking the door again. Seconds later, I heard a soft knock. Eleanor, Sophie called. I brought you some tea. I don't want any, thank you, I replied, but it will help you sleep. I'm fine, Sophie. I just want to be alone. I heard her hesitate on the other side of the door. Then her footsteps faded away. I took out the hidden phone and wrote to Liam. They're getting more insistent. I think they've realized I'm not taking their medicine anymore. I don't know how much longer I can keep up this charade. The reply came quickly. Hold on for just one more day, Mom. Tomorrow night, it will all be over. The next morning, Ethan announced he had a surprise. Mom, I managed to schedule a consultation with a memory specialist. He can see us this afternoon. Today? I questioned. So suddenly? It's a special favor, he explained. This doctor is in high demand, but he made an exception for us. I suspected immediately. Was this the Dr. Perez who would issue the false report? They were speeding up the plan, probably pressured by their creditors. I don't know, Ethan. I'm not feeling very well today. All the more reason to go, he insisted. The doctor can prescribe something more effective than those old pills you take. I needed to buy time. I sent a discreet message to Liam, informing him about the appointment. Don't go, under any circumstances, he replied. It's a trap. We're speeding up our plan too. Stay home today. Make up any excuse. Ethan, I said, leaving the room after exchanging messages with Liam. I'm sorry, but I can't go to the appointment. I just remembered we scheduled to clear out Liam's apartment today. The property manager called. Ethan's expression hardened. That can wait, Mom. Your health is more important. No, it can't, I insisted. The lease ends today. If we don't remove his things, they'll be discarded. These are the last memories of your brother. Ethan looked like he was about to explode, but held back. Fine, he said, controlling his voice. I'll reschedule the appointment, but tomorrow without fail, okay? Of course, I agreed, knowing that by then everything would have changed. That afternoon, Ethan left to run some errands. Sophie stayed at home, watching me like a hawk. She insisted I have tea, which I politely declined. She suggested I rest, that we watch a movie together, anything to keep me in her sight. Around 5 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Sophie went to answer and returned with a pale expression. "Eleanor," she said, her voice trembling, "there's someone here to see you, about Liam." I stood up from the sofa, my heart racing. Was Liam's plan already in motion? In the entryway, I found a tall man in a suit with a police badge in his hand. "Mrs. Eleanor Vance?" he asked. "I'm Commander Rodriguez. I need to speak with you about your son, Liam Vance." "Yes, of course," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. Sophie approached, placing her hand on my shoulder in a gesture I would have once interpreted as support, but now recognized as control. "I'm Sophie, her daughter-in-law. What's happened?" The commander looked at her with a neutral expression. "If you don't mind, I need to speak with Mrs. Vance in private." "But she's fragile," Sophie insisted. "She recently lost her son." "I understand, but this is a confidential matter." "It's all right, Sophie," I intervened. "We can use the study." I led the commander to the study that had been my late husband's and closed the door. As soon as we were alone, he spoke in a low voice. "Mrs. Vance, I'm a friend of David Chen. Your son Liam came to me with some very serious evidence about illegal activities involving your other son, Ethan." So that was it. The plan was underway. "We are about to arrest Ethan for fraud, forgery, and attempted fraudulent legal interdiction," he continued. "But first, we need to ensure your safety. There's a chance Ethan might react unpredictably when he finds out he's been discovered." "What should I do?" I asked, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. "A police team is positioned near your house. We're waiting for Ethan to return to make the arrest." "And Sophie?" I asked. "Is she involved too?" "Yes. We have proof that she was a co-conspirator in the entire scheme. Both will be arrested." I tried to process the magnitude of it all. My 2 sons, one faking his own death to protect me, the other conspiring against me. "There's one more thing you need to know," the commander added, lowering his voice even further. "Your son, Liam, is here." My heart leaped. "Here? Where?" "In the car a block away. He insisted on being present despite the risks. Do you want to see him before we arrest Ethan?" "Yes," I replied without hesitation. The commander took out his phone and sent a quick message. "I'm going to create a distraction for Sophie. When I go out to the living room with her, you leave through the back door. There's a black car waiting on the corner." I nodded, feeling like a character in a spy movie. What do I tell her about our conversation? Say we're investigating some irregularities in Liam's life insurance policy. Nothing to worry about, just bureaucracy. We left the study, and the commander asked Sophie to show him the insurance documents. While they headed to the living room, I slipped quietly through the kitchen door that led to the patio. My heart was beating so loudly, I feared Sophie might hear it. I crossed the garden, went out the side gate, and spotted the black car. The back door opened as I approached. I got in quickly, and there he was, Liam, my son, alive. We hugged in silence, both trembling with emotion. There were no words for that moment. "Mom," he finally said, "it's ending. Today, all of this ends." "How are you?" I asked, still holding his face in my hands, as I did when he was a child. "Worried about you. It was harder than I imagined, being away, knowing the danger." "Your brother," I began, but couldn't complete the sentence. "I know," Liam replied sadly. "I still can't believe what he became." David, who was in the passenger seat, turned to us. "Ethan just arrived at the house," he reported. "The police will move in any moment." "I want to be there," I declared. "Mom, it's not safe," Liam protested. "I need to see it with my own eyes. I need to look him in the eye when he finds out I know everything." Liam exchanged a look with David, who nodded reluctantly. "All right, but I'm going with you. It's time for Ethan to know he didn't succeed." We returned to the house in the car, now accompanied by 2 police cruisers. When we entered the living room, Ethan was sitting on the sofa, talking tensely with Sophie. They both turned at the sound of the door. The shock on Ethan's face when he saw Liam was something I will never forget. His eyes widened. His face turned ashen as if he had seen a ghost, which in a way was exactly what he was seeing. What is this?" he stammered, standing up. "Hello, brother," Liam said calmly. Sophie let out a choked scream, covering her mouth with her hands. "Impossible," she murmured. "You're dead. You saw what was convenient for you to see," Liam replied, "just as I saw what you were planning for our mother." The police officers entered the living room, led by Commander Rodriguez. "Ethan Vance, Sophie Vance, you are under arrest for multiple counts of fraud, document forgery, conspiracy, and attempted fraudulent interdiction." Ethan looked like a cornered animal, his eyes darting from Liam to me to the police. Suddenly, his gaze hardened. "This is ridiculous," he exclaimed. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, we can," the commander said, motioning to one of the officers who opened a folder. "We have copies of emails exchanged between you and Dr. Perez Mendoza, discussing the issuance of a false medical report declaring your mother mentally incompetent. We have the forged documents with her signature. We have proof that you opened credit cards in her name without her consent." Ethan looked at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. "Mom, it's not what it looks like," he tried. "We were trying to protect you." "Protect me?" I repeated, keeping my voice steady despite the pain consuming me. "Drugging me? Stealing my money? Planning to put me in an asylum? Is that protection, Ethan?" "You don't understand. We were desperate." "Because of the gambling debts?" I asked. "The loans from loan sharks? The extravagant spending?" He seemed surprised that I knew so many details. "How?" "I found your documents," I explained, "the day you went out. I saw everything. The statements, the photos you took of me, the notes, everything." Sophie, silent until then, suddenly lunged in my direction. "You meddling old woman! You ruined everything!" A police officer restrained her before she could reach me. "Sophie Vance, you are under arrest." As the police handcuffed the couple, I looked at Ethan. No longer the boy I raised, but a stranger whose eyes burned with rage. "This isn't over," he threatened as he was led away. "I have connections. You'll regret this." Liam put his arm around me, protecting me as he had always done. "It's over, Mom," he said softly. "They can't hurt you anymore." But as I watched my younger son being taken away by the police, I knew that some wounds would never fully heal. The days following Ethan and Sophie's arrest were a whirlwind of emotions and bureaucracy. Statements to the police, meetings with lawyers, endless forms to nullify the forgeries and undo the financial damage they had caused. But amidst all that chaos, there was a profound joy. Liam was alive. My son's official resurrection required almost as much paperwork as his death. David mobilized a legal team to handle the complications. There were fines to pay for falsifying the death certificate, explanations to give to the authorities, and a new burial to arrange for the true occupant of the coffin we had buried, a man with no family whose identity had been temporarily borrowed thanks to David's contacts. What was it like, living in hiding all this time? I asked Liam one evening as we had dinner alone at home for the first time since everything happened. "Lonely," he admitted. "I stayed in a safe apartment David arranged in Portland. I only went out for essentials, always in disguise. The hardest part was knowing you were suffering, believing I was dead, while being exposed to danger. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Liam sighed, putting down his silverware. "That was my biggest doubt. David and I discussed it for days. In the end, we decided your reaction of grief needed to be genuine, so Ethan wouldn't suspect anything. If you knew the truth, you might not have been able to maintain the charade. You underestimated my acting skills, I commented with a small smile. He smiled back. Perhaps, but we also didn't know how far Ethan was willing to go. If he sensed you knew something, he might have accelerated his plans. The implication hung heavy between us. How far would my own son have gone to get what he wanted? The hearings start next week, I said, changing the subject. The lawyer said Ethan is trying for a plea deal. Typical of him, Liam replied bitterly, always looking for the easy way out, even at the expense of others. Sophie is cooperating with the prosecution, I added, offering information in exchange for a reduced sentence. Apparently, she's blaming everything on Ethan. I'm not surprised. She was always manipulative. I looked out the window towards the garden where my two sons used to play together, building forts from branches and leaves, defending themselves against imaginary enemies. Where did we go wrong with him, Liam? What happened to that sweet boy we knew? Liam was silent for a moment. I don't think we went wrong, Mom. Some people just make bad choices, then more bad choices to cover up the first ones, and before they know it, they're trapped in a downward spiral. But to try to steal from his own mother, to drug me, to institutionalize me, his debts were worse than we imagined. The investigator found that Ethan owed over $400,000 to loan sharks tied to organized crime. They were threatening his life and Sophie's. He could have asked for help, I argued. We would have found a solution. Pride, maybe? Shame? Or maybe he was just so far gone he couldn't see a way back. I pondered Liam's words. How many small decisions, how many lies had my son told himself to justify his actions? At what point did he cross the line, transforming from a loving son into a conspirator willing to destroy his own mother? The following week, we faced the first hearing. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. The emails, the forged documents, the testimony of the doctor who had been bribed to issue the false report. Ethan's lawyer argued that he had acted under duress, fearing for his life due to his debts. He tried to paint my son as a victim of circumstance, someone who made mistakes out of desperation, not malice. When I had to testify, I looked directly at Ethan. He kept his eyes down, unable to meet my gaze. I described how they had tried to make me doubt my own mind, how they had drugged me, how they planned to tear me from my home and put me in an institution while they spent my money. Do you believe your son poses a danger to you? The prosecutor asked. I hesitated. Despite everything, he was my son. I believe he poses a danger to himself and to anyone who has something he wants, I finally answered. I no longer recognize him as the son I raised. I saw Ethan shrink in his chair. After 3 weeks of hearings, the judge delivered his sentence. Ethan was sentenced to 6 years in prison for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Sophie, in exchange for her cooperation, received a 3-year sentence, with the possibility of parole after 1 year. As the judge read the sentence, I watched Ethan. There was no arrogance left on his face, only defeat. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I thought I saw a glimmer of the boy he had been. Lost, scared, repentant. But then the moment passed, and he was led away by the guards. In the courthouse parking lot, Liam asked me, "How do you feel?" Like I've lost a son all over again, I answered honestly. Only this time, it was his choice. Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive him? I looked up at the sky, thinking about the answer. I don't know, Liam. Forgiveness isn't something you decide on in a day. It's a process. And us? What do we do now? It was a good question. Our life had been turned upside down twice, first by Liam's death, then by Ethan's betrayal. I think we need a fresh start, I suggested. This house has too many memories now, some good, others too painful. In the following months, I put the house in Denver up for sale, ironically fulfilling Ethan's wish, but on my own terms. Liam and I found a smaller, cozier house in a coastal town in Oregon, 2 hours away, a place where no one knew us, where we wouldn't be the mother and brother of that man who tried to steal from his own family. On moving day, I took one last walk through the empty house where I raised my sons. Every room held memories. Ethan taking his first steps in this living room. Liam studying late in that bedroom. Both of them running down the hall on rainy days. I stopped in Ethan's room, now empty except for a box I had set aside. Photos of him growing up, his school report cards, the drawings he made for me on Mother's Day. I couldn't get rid of those memories, even after everything. "Ready?" Liam asked, standing in the doorway. "Almost," I replied. "I just need a minute." When he left, I placed an envelope inside the box. It was a letter I had written to Ethan, not to be sent now, but maybe someday when the wounds weren't so raw. "My son," the letter began. "I don't know when or if you'll read this, but I want you to know that despite everything that happened, a part of me still remembers the boy you were. I can't forgive what you did, not now, maybe never. But I also can't erase 35 years of love. That will always be there, like a scar that never completely fades." I closed the box, took a deep breath, and prepared to leave that life behind. In our new house, Liam and I established a quiet routine. He continued working remotely for the same company, though David had offered him a partnership after all they'd been through together. Our new home was just a few steps from the beach. Every morning I would walk on the sand, still cool from the night, watching the sea in its eternal motion. There was something comforting in that constancy. The waves came and went, regardless of the human dramas unfolding on their shores. About 6 months after we moved, I received a letter from the penitentiary where Ethan was serving his sentence. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it, unsure if I wanted to read what was inside. "Let's face it together," Liam said, sitting next to me on the sofa. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. "Mom," the letter began. I don't know where to start. The words sorry or forgive me seem so small next to what I did that it's almost not worth writing them. But they're the only ones I have. I have a lot of time to think in here, to think about how I got to this point, how I could conspire against the person who gave me life, who held my hand when I took my first steps, who stayed up all night when I had a fever. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to visit or write back. I just needed you to know that in the midst of this darkness I'm in, I'm finally seeing clearly the monster I became. The mandatory therapy in prison has helped me understand my behavior patterns, how one lie led to another, how I convinced myself that money and status were more important than family, how I rationalized every terrible decision, telling myself it was only temporary, that one day I would make it all up. I know words are just words, especially coming from someone who lied as much as I did. But they are sincere, however empty that may sound now. If someday, years from now, you feel you can give me a chance to demonstrate with actions the remorse I feel, I'll be waiting. If not, I'll understand. You've suffered enough because of me. With love. Though I've proven I don't deserve to use that word, Ethan. When I finished reading, I realized I was crying. I didn't know exactly why, if it was for the loss of the son I once knew, for the pain I still felt from his betrayal, or for some confusing hope that maybe, just maybe, those words were true. Liam remained silent, respecting my moment. "What do you think?" I finally asked. "Honestly?" "I don't know," he replied. Ethan was always good with words. Remember how he used to talk his way out of trouble in school? How he convinced teachers he deserved a second chance? I nodded, remembering how my younger son had a gift for charming people. "But I also know that people can change," Liam continued, "especially when they hit rock bottom, and Ethan certainly hit it." "Could you ever forgive him someday?" I asked. Liam thought for a moment. "Maybe. With a lot of time and a lot of proof that the change is genuine. But trusting him again, that would be much harder." I kept the letter in a drawer, undecided whether to reply. A few days later, during my morning walk on the beach, I met an older lady sitting on a bench, watching the sea. We started talking, as happens in small towns. Her name was Amelia. She was 78 and had been living alone since her husband passed away. When I mentioned I had recently moved to town, she asked why. Surprisingly, I found myself telling her the whole story about Liam's fake death, Ethan's conspiracy, everything. It was the first time I'd spoken about it with anyone other than Liam, David, and the lawyers. "You know," Amelia said when I finished, "I have a story not so different." She told me that decades ago her daughter had stolen all her savings to support a drug addiction. She had lied, manipulated, and even threatened her own mother. "For years I didn't speak to her," Amelia explained. "I couldn't. The pain was too great. But one day I received a letter similar to the one you describe. I ignored it. Then another came and another. For 3 years, my daughter wrote to me monthly without a single reply from me." "And what happened?" I asked. "In the 4th year, I decided to read all the letters at once. I saw a progression in them, from desperation to acceptance, from self-pity to true remorse. In the last letter, she no longer asked for anything. She just told me about her life, her recovery, how she was trying to help other people with similar problems." Amelia smiled, looking at the horizon. "I decided to visit her. It was strange, painful, but also healing in a way. Today we have a relationship. It's not perfect. It will never be like it was before, but it's something. And you know what? I don't regret giving her that chance. Even if it had ended badly, I wouldn't regret it, because I needed to know, for myself, if it was possible to rebuild something from the ruins." Her words stayed with me for days. The following week, I wrote a brief reply to Ethan. "I received your letter. I'm not ready to forgive or forget. Maybe I never will be, but I'm willing to read what you have to say. That's all I can offer right now." It was the beginning of a cautious correspondence. At first, we exchanged letters every month. Ethan told me about his routine in prison, the therapy sessions, the jobs he did inside. He never asked for anything. He never pushed for visits or forgiveness. Liam, initially skeptical, began to admit that perhaps there was a genuine change in his brother. "The letters seemed different," he commented after reading one with my permission, "less manipulative, more reflective." A year after the first letter, Ethan mentioned he was participating in a financial rehabilitation program, learning to handle money responsibly. He was also teaching math to other inmates, helping them get their high school diplomas. "I've discovered that teaching gives me a purpose that money never did," he wrote. "Seeing someone understand a new concept, seeing the pride in the eyes of men society has written off when they manage to solve a problem. That's priceless." In the 2nd year of our correspondence, I made a difficult decision. I would go visit him. "Are you sure?" Liam asked, concerned. "You don't have to do this if you're not ready." "I need to see it with my own eyes," I replied. "I need to look him in the eye and feel if there's truth in what he writes." The day of the visit arrived, cold and overcast. The penitentiary was an oppressive place. High walls, barbed wire fences, armed guards. I went through various security procedures before being led to the visiting room. When Ethan entered, I almost didn't recognize him. He was thinner, his hair cut in the prison's military style, his face marked by a seriousness he never had before. His eyes, however, were the same. The eyes of my younger son, now glistening as he saw me. "Mom," he said simply, his voice thick with emotion. "Ethan," I replied, maintaining my composure. We sat on opposite sides of a simple table. For a few minutes, neither of us could say anything. "Thank you for coming," he finally spoke. "I didn't expect it." "Neither did I admitted. It was a last-minute decision. "How's Liam?" he asked. It was the first time he had mentioned his brother in our correspondence. "He's fine. He still has nightmares about the fake funeral." Ethan looked down. "I'm so sorry for everything. I know it doesn't mean much, but—" "Why, Ethan," I interrupted, the question escaping me before I could stop it. "Why did you go so far?" He took a deep breath, as if he had been expecting that question. At first, it was just small bets. I thought I could control it. Before I knew it, I was drowning in debt. Sophie liked a lavish life, and I wanted to impress her. One thing led to another. I started borrowing from dangerous people. Then came the pressure, the threats. But why didn't you ask for our help? Pride, shame. And after a while, the debts were so big I knew you couldn't help, even if you wanted to. That's when I started to see your assets as a solution. The brutal honesty of his words hit me like a punch. And drugging me, making me think I was losing my mind? He closed his eyes, as if he couldn't bear his own reflection in my eyes. Each step seemed like a small transgression at the time, a stronger medicine so you'd sleep and not notice when we took documents. Then, so you wouldn't question when we talked about conversations that never happened. It was a slippery slope. Each small lie made the next one easier. Our conversation continued for almost an hour. There was no grand catharsis, no dramatic moment of forgiveness or reconciliation. Just two adults, mother and son, trying to understand how they had reached that point. When I left the penitentiary that afternoon, I felt simultaneously exhausted and relieved. Seeing Ethan face to face, hearing his explanations, had brought a kind of closure that the letters couldn't provide. How did it go? Liam asked anxiously when I got home. Difficult, I answered honestly, but necessary. In the following months, I continued to exchange letters with Ethan, now more frequently. Occasionally, I made another visit. Liam refused to accompany me. He wasn't ready to face the brother who had killed him and conspired against their mother. Maybe someday, he would say whenever I asked. But not now. I understood his resistance. The betrayal he suffered was twofold, not just as a son, but also as a brother who had his identity stolen, his death staged, all because of his own brother's greed. One day, about 2.5 years after Ethan's arrest, I received an unexpected call. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, this is Dr. Silvera, a psychologist at the state penitentiary. Yes, I replied, immediately fearing the worst. Did something happen to my son? No, I'm sorry to alarm you. In fact, I'm calling with good news. Your son has excelled in our rehabilitation program. He's developed a math teaching method for inmates with learning difficulties that is achieving remarkable results. That's surprising, I commented. Yes, and that's why I'm calling. We are considering Ethan for the work release program. He has already served more than 1/3 of his sentence. He has shown excellent behavior and genuine remorse. With his background in business, he could work during the day and return to the penitentiary at night. The news took me by surprise. Part of me felt happy for Ethan's progress, but another part felt an instinctive wariness. And when would that happen? If all goes well in the final evaluation, within 3 months, the doctor explained. He mentioned he would like to know your opinion before accepting the progression. That surprised me even more. My opinion? Why? He said he doesn't want you to feel uncomfortable or unsafe. If you prefer him to remain in the closed regime for longer, he will understand and wait. I promised the doctor I would think about it and give him an answer in a few days. When I told Liam, his reaction was one of skepticism. Work release? Already? And doesn't this supposed concern for your opinion seem a bit manipulative? Maybe, I admitted, but the psychologist seems genuinely impressed with his progress. Psychologists can be fooled, Liam argued. Ethan always knew how to present himself well when it suited him. That night, I reread all the letters Ethan had sent me over the past few years. I was looking for signs of manipulation, of falsehood, of a long-term plan. But what I saw was a progression, from the first letters filled with self-pity to the more recent ones, where he talked about the other inmates he was helping, the small satisfactions of seeing someone learn something new, and the therapy that was finally making him understand his own demons. The following week, during my regular visit, I confronted Ethan about the psychologist's call. Why did you ask for my opinion on your progression? He seemed genuinely surprised. I thought it was the least I could do, Ethan replied, his gaze direct and unwavering. After all the harm I caused, I don't want you to feel threatened or unsafe by me being freer. And if I say I prefer you to stay in the closed regime, then that's what I'll do, he replied simply. I'll wait as long as it takes. I studied his face, searching for signs of falsehood, of calculation. I found nothing but a resigned acceptance. Why are you teaching math to other inmates? I asked, changing the subject. His face lit up slightly. It started by chance. One of the guys in my block was trying to get his GED but was struggling with algebra. I offered to help. Soon others started asking me too. He paused. These men, Mom, many never had a real chance in life. Some can barely read. When I see the pride in their eyes when they solve a problem for the first time, it's like I'm doing something that actually matters. There was a sincerity in his voice that moved me. For a brief moment, I glimpsed the boy he had been. Curious, bright, always willing to explain things to those who were struggling. After several days of reflection, I made my decision. I called Dr. Silvera and informed him that I did not oppose Ethan's progression to the work release program. Liam was not pleased. We're taking an unnecessary risk, he argued. What if he goes back to his old ways? What if he decides to visit you when he's out during the day? He'll be monitored, I explained. And honestly, Liam, at some point we have to accept the possibility that people can change. Some people, maybe, he replied, but Ethan deceived us for so long. I know it's harder for you, I acknowledged. He not only betrayed your trust, but he forced you into an extreme situation. I'm not asking you to forgive him, just to accept that I'm willing to give him this chance. 3 months later, Ethan began the work release program. He got a job at a nonprofit organization that worked with the reintegration of ex-convicts, where he used his administrative skills during the day, returning to the penitentiary at night and on weekends. In his letters, he described his work with enthusiasm. I'm helping people who made mistakes like me find a way back into society. It's ironic and fitting at the same time. We spent another year in that routine. Ethan working during the day, serving his sentence at night, our occasional visits and frequent letters. Liam remained reluctant to have any contact with his brother, though I noticed he asked more questions about Ethan, about his work, about his apparent rehabilitation. Then, the day of the hearing for his progression to a full release program arrived. Ethan could live in a halfway house, needing only to check in periodically with the justice system. I'm going to the hearing, I announced to Liam the night before. He was silent for a moment. Then he said something that surprised me. I'll go too. Are you sure? No, he admitted. But I think it's time to face this as a family, or what's left of it. The hearing was brief but intense. The judge reviewed Ethan's record in prison. He listened to testimonies from psychologists and supervisors, all positive. When he asked if anyone from the family would like to speak, I stood up. My son made serious mistakes, I began, feeling the weight of every word. He conspired against me. He betrayed my trust. He caused immense suffering to our family. But in the last 3 years, I have seen a consistent and genuine effort on his part to change, to understand the reasons behind his actions, and to repair, as much as possible, the damage he caused. I support his progression to the open regime. To my surprise, Liam also stood up. Your Honor, I am Liam Vance, the defendant's brother. I was a direct victim of his actions, having been forced to fake my own death to protect our mother from his plans. He paused, looking directly at Ethan for the first time in almost 4 years. I am not ready to forgive my brother. Maybe I never will be. But I recognize the efforts he has made. I do not oppose the progression of his sentence. I saw Ethan bow his head, silent tears streaming down his face. The judge granted the progression. When the hearing ended, Ethan approached us hesitantly. Thank you, he said simply. I don't deserve this. but I'm going to try to live up to the opportunity you're giving me." Liam just nodded briefly, still unable to express any affection, but that small gesture meant more than 1,000 words. In the following weeks, Ethan settled into a halfway house, continuing his work at the nonprofit. He also started a night course for a degree in mathematics. He wanted to become a teacher. "I discovered that teaching gives me a purpose I never found before," he wrote. "I want to do something that really matters, that helps other people." About 6 months after his move to the open regime, Ethan asked for something that took me by surprise. He wanted to invite us, Liam and me, to lunch. "I completely understand if you refuse," he wrote, "but I would like the chance to be with you outside the prison environment, as a family, or at least to try." I showed the letter to Liam, expecting his immediate refusal. He read it in silence. Then he sighed deeply. "I think it's time," he said finally, "not for him, but for us, to close this chapter in some way." The lunch took place in a simple restaurant near the halfway house. At first, the atmosphere was tense, laden with unspoken words and deep resentments. But slowly, as the meal progressed, something began to shift. It wasn't a miraculous reconciliation. There were no emotional hugs or instant pardons. Just 3 people trying to find a new way to coexist, aware of the past, but not completely imprisoned by it. The following years were a slow process of reconstruction. Ethan finished serving his sentence. He earned his degree as a math teacher and began working in a public school on the outskirts of the city, teaching at-risk teenagers. Our family lunches became more frequent, monthly then bi-weekly. Liam and Ethan never regained the closeness they had in childhood, but they developed a cautious respect for one another. Deep wounds like ours don't heal completely, but over time, the sharp pain gave way to a melancholic acceptance. 5 years after that phone call that changed everything, we received an invitation from Ethan. He was graduating with honors from his degree program and would like us to be there. At the ceremony, I watched my younger son receive his diploma, his face mature and serene, so different from the desperate, greedy man who had conspired against his own mother. By his side was a young teacher from the same school where he worked, Marina, his girlfriend for almost a year, a gentle woman who knew our entire history and still chose to stay by his side. "Are you okay?" Liam asked, noticing my teary eyes. "I'm just thinking about how unpredictable life is," I replied. If someone had told me 6 years ago that the 3 of us would be here today, celebrating Ethan's graduation, I would have thought it was madness. And yet, here we are, he completed. After the ceremony, Ethan approached us, holding his diploma and bringing Marina by the hand. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "It means more than I can express." "We're proud of you," I replied, and I realized it was true. Liam extended his hand to his brother, a gesture that, in its simplicity, carried enormous weight. "Good work," he said simply. That night, I sat on the balcony of my house by the sea, reflecting on the extraordinary journey our family had taken, from betrayal to redemption, from mourning to rebirth, from distrust to the possibility of renewed trust. I thought about how our lives had been transformed by Liam's single, desperate decision to fake his own death to protect me. What would have happened if he hadn't been so vigilant? If he hadn't discovered Ethan's plans in time? I would probably be in some institution, drugged and confused, while Ethan and Sophie drained my savings. Or perhaps worse. I also thought about Sophie, who served her reduced sentence and disappeared from our lives. According to the latest rumors, she had married a businessman in another city, completely reinventing herself. I sincerely hoped she had found a better path as well. I realized I was smiling despite everything. Not because the past didn't matter. It would always matter. It would always be a part of who we were. But because we had found a way not to let it define our future. The next morning, Ethan showed up for coffee. He was nervous, restless. "There's something I want to ask you," he finally said. I'll completely understand if the answer is no. What is it? Marina and I are thinking of getting married next year. That's wonderful, I replied sincerely. Marina was a good influence in his life, an anchor of stability. Yes, but, well, we're looking for a place to live. Something small, modest, near the school where we work, and I was wondering if you would lend me a little money for the down payment. I felt a pang of apprehension. Money had been the trigger for the entire tragedy in our family. It's not much, he continued quickly, sensing my hesitation. I have some savings. Marina does too. It would just be to supplement. And of course, we would make a formal contract with monthly payments. I raised my hand, interrupting him. Ethan, I'm going to think about it. Not because I don't trust you now, but because we need to be careful with these matters in our family, considering our history. He nodded, visibly relieved that I hadn't refused outright. Of course, Mom. Take all the time you need, and if the answer is no, I'll completely understand. When he left, I called Liam. I told him about Ethan's request. What do you think? I asked. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I think it's a test, he said finally. Not for Ethan, but for us. To see if we really believe he's changed. And do you believe it? Another silence. I believe he's trying, Liam replied cautiously. I believe he's no longer the person he was, but I think we should be prudent. How? Maybe we can help in a way that doesn't involve handing over money directly. We could be guarantors for the loan, for example, or buy the house and set up a formal rent-to-own contract. It was a sensible suggestion, a middle ground between trust and caution. 2 days later, I called Ethan to talk. I explained the proposal Liam and I had worked out. It's not a matter of not trusting you, I explained. It's about establishing healthy boundaries after everything we've been through. To my surprise, Ethan seemed genuinely relieved. That's perfect, he said. To be honest, I was worried after I asked. I thought it might give the wrong impression that it might look like I was falling back into old habits. You thought about that? I think about it every day, Mom. I'm afraid of becoming that person again, of disappointing you again, of disappointing myself. It's a constant struggle. That honest admission meant more to me than any grandiose promise ever could. In the following months, we worked together to find a suitable house for Ethan and Marina. Liam, with his financial expertise, structured a fair contract that protected all parties. It was an exercise in cautious trust, of gradual rebuilding. On the day Ethan and Marina moved into their new house, we had a small celebration, just the four of us with a simple meal in the newly acquired backyard. A toast, I proposed, raising my glass, to new beginnings. To new beginnings, everyone repeated. As I watched my two sons talking civilly, I couldn't help but reflect on the extraordinary journey we had traveled, from desperation to hope, from betrayal to an incomplete but meaningful redemption. What are you thinking about? Marina asked, sitting next to me as the brothers discussed the best way to fix the back deck. About how life rarely follows the path we expect, I replied, and how sometimes, from the greatest tragedies, opportunities for growth can arise that we would never have imagined. She smiled, covering my hand with hers. Ethan tells me stories about what you were like when he was a child. He says you were always the strength of the family, even before all this happened. I didn't feel strong when I found out the truth about his plans, I admitted. I felt broken, betrayed, lost. But you survived, she observed. And more than that, you found a path not just for yourself, but for the whole family. I looked again at my sons, Liam showing Ethan how the deck wood needed to be treated. Ethan listening attentively, respectfully. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what I had dreamed for us so many years ago, but it was real, it was honest, and that had its own kind of beauty. You know, I said to Marina, for a long time I thought our story was about betrayal. Then I thought it was about forgiveness. Now I realize it's about something more complex, about how to move forward even when complete forgiveness may never come, about finding a new kind of relationship from the ashes of the old one. She nodded, understanding perfectly. Ethan knows that too, she said softly. He knows that some bridges, once burned, can never be fully rebuilt, but he's grateful that you at least built a narrow footbridge to cross the chasm. A narrow footbridge. It was a good metaphor for what we had achieved, not the wide bridge of unrestricted trust we had before, but a fragile, carefully maintained connection that allowed for some kind of relationship. As the sun began to set, I cast one last look at my sons before announcing it was time for me to go. They were side by side now, not exactly close, but not distant either, working together to measure boards for the deck. It was an image I would have never imagined possible 6 years ago, when I received that fateful call from Liam's boss. An image that spoke not of perfect happy endings, but of overcoming, resilience, and the complex, imperfect, but profoundly human capacity to begin again. Now, if you enjoyed this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments what part left your jaw on the floor. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos I don't post here. I'll see you there.